a new parent and I'm starting to think about, some life insurance for myself. What's the difference between a whole life versus a term life insurance and which is better for a newer parent?
Yeah, so generally speaking, as a newer parent, you could make a pretty good argument for a term life. Term life is a lot less expensive than whole life because it's only for a term 5, 10, 20, 30 years. You pick a term. The longer the term, the more expensive it is, and the more you need in insurance, the more expensive. And the worse your health, the more expensive. So you go the other way, it's all less expensive. But term insurance is meant for, in my opinion, kind of term problems. So, when my kids were born, I had a mortgage, I had a business, I had the possibility of school and college for my kids, and so I wanted to make sure that something happened to me that my wife and children had the ability to handle all of those, still have my kids go to college and still have the mortgage be able to be paid and those types of things. So get a 20, 30-year term policy. It's going to cover the time frame that I'm looking at. Eventually, if theoretically your kids get through college, and I have two in college now, so I'm still waiting. Anyway, that aspect, they'll start to take care of themselves, and maybe you don't need as much insurance as far as that goes. Whole life insurance is a lot more expensive, mainly because it doesn't have a term. It just keeps going for as long as you can pay for it. Sometimes they have what's called a paid up policy where your cash value can start to pay your premiums as you build up. So oftentimes in a whole life, there's a cash value. So people look at that in lots of different ways where you don't have a cash value in term insurance. But generally speaking, the whole life is used for really for estate planning purposes. And where you have an estate that's maybe going to be taxable, or you have an estate that's not that liquid, like a lot of real estate, and so a whole life policy would come in and pay the estate taxes or pay off different things that might be there. And so the challenge with the whole life policy is that oftentimes you really don't have an estate till you're older, and then it's a lot more expensive to get the insurance. So there's a lot of pieces there. You could also make an argument for having a whole life policy fairly young, at least some, just because oftentimes you don't have medical conditions that you might have as you get older, as far as that goes. So they're for different scenarios. And again, what I'm saying is probably somewhat controversial in some circles, to be honest, because I've run into a lot of people that think whole life is perfect for everything or term is perfect for everything, So, but that's how I look at it. Really, term is for a term problem, and whole life is for a lifelong issue, which would most likely be an estate planning issue or a liquidity issue. But anyway, they're those are the differences.